In today's video, we're going to be diving in on how to easily and quickly analyze any Section 8 deal in under 5 minutes. By the end of this video, you're going to be able to do 4 very important things. The first thing is you're going to be able to quickly understand what deal is actually worth your time. Secondly, you're going to be able to understand the relationship between how a goal changes what makes a deal an actually good deal. The third thing that you're going to take from this video is you're going to know the handful of numbers that actually decide whether or not a deal is a good deal or not. And lastly, you're going to be able to spot any and all the red flags that tell you if you should walk away from a deal sooner rather than later. Let's dive right into the video today. All right, guys, so the most important part about analyzing any deal is you have to understand why is it that you're doing this deal, okay? There are 4 main things that go into people's goals typically when it comes to purchasing real estate. I have 4 of them up on the screen right now. The obvious one is cash flow, right? Everybody wants to get that mailbox money. The second one is appreciation. So buying something at one price and then selling it at a higher price in the future, right? You're thinking more long-term that way. Then you actually have the tax advantage. Are you a high income earner that's trying to offset their taxes in their personal income? That's another reason people buy real estate. And lastly, for a 1031 exchange, hey, you've made money, you have a capital gain, and you're hoping to defer your taxes a little bit longer by rolling it into the next play. Yes, there's multiple other reasons as to why people purchase real estate, but I would say these are the 4 most popular reasons as to why people do buy real estate. And it's important to understand what hat you're wearing, because understanding what your why is going to tell you whether or not that deal is in alignment with your goals or not. All right? Okay, let's talk about my 4-step process on how I analyze any particular deal that I'm looking at when it comes to my acquisition process. The first thing is going to be obvious. It's going to be the condition of the home. What is the condition of the property actually in? Second is going to be area. What's the condition of the neighborhood? What are the conditions of the surrounding properties? What does the growth look like in a particular area? The third thing is going to be crime, right? Do we see shootings happening here every single day? Do we see robberies, burglary? Like, do we see high crime in any particular area at all? And lastly, do the numbers actually work for me, right? I like to buy properties for cash flow and appreciation. So the numbers have to make sense in alignment with the goal that I chose on slide number 1 for my whys. Okay, so let's dive into each of these parts so you guys understand it a little bit better before we jump into our live example in part number 2. So what's the actual condition of the neighborhood? Several things that you guys need to be taking into account and thinking about when purchasing any real estate, especially when it comes to Section 8 housing, is what are the school districts in a particular area, right? You have to understand most voucher holders on a program are single mothers with dependents, right, with kids. So if you can provide them a property in an area where their kids can get a good education, your property 9 times out of 10 is going to stay occupied longer compared to a person that's in a horrible area surrounded by crime and in horrible school districts, okay? Is there appreciation, right? Is there development taking place in your area? Can you tell that the city and local developers are actually building things, Chick-fil-A's, Starbucks, bringing in Targets, Walmarts, things along those lines that actually makes people want to live in those particular areas? These types of things matter when it comes to analyzing what deals do you actually want. All right. Also, tenant demand. This is going to play hand in hand in school districts and appreciating areas because everybody wants to live in these more developing areas. Everybody wants to live around these school districts. For some reason, people think about Section 8 as if it's some different beast. And just because you're getting government guaranteed money, it means that these tenants are not still wanting to live around the same things. Okay. And like I said, I've already kind of touched on this in 2 other ways, but again, development and direction. What is the direction that the local area is moving towards? Are there more vacancies? Or are there more crime-ridden, drug-ridden areas? Or is there an actual push to improve upon the area? Local parks being made, maybe new schools being built and created, things along those lines, okay? So again, area is super important when you're considering what makes a deal a good deal, okay? And again, you'll be able to analyze all of this information in less than 5 minutes once we put all of it together. All right, diving into part number 3 of this 4-part process is going to be crime. Okay, you want to understand what do the crime readings actually say. It's super important. There's a bunch of free and fast data that you can utilize to pull data, right? Because this crime information is also going to shape what your tenant pool is. Okay, if you're in high crime areas, okay, you're typically going to be dealing with people that are maybe more okay with that, which is totally fine. But you have to understand there can be a direct correlation and reflection to the type of tenant that you're putting into your property as the area or the surrounding areas that you're looking to purchase in. Okay, crime is also going to help determine vacancy, right? If you're in a high crime area, again, I don't care who you are. Nobody wants to be surrounded by crime all the time. So you're going to see an increased vacancy time because who wants to actually live in an area where there's crime going on all around? Okay. And it's also going to make it more difficult for you in the future to actually exit the property because, again, if there's no development taking place in the area, if there's no further growth taking place in the area, then typically that area is going to be on a slow or sharp decline, meaning that that property could be worth less than what you purchased it for. And there could be less investors interested in actually buying in that particular area of the market. All right. Lastly, again, the numbers talk, right? So the last thing that we're going to be looking at for part 4 is going to be cash flow. Okay. Again, do the numbers actually work? We have to understand what is our money in, right? Money in is all in cost. Okay. So it's our price of the purchase price of the property, what the closing amount or the closing costs for the property actually are. Let's change that. So our fourth and final important factor when we're analyzing any particular deal is, do the numbers actually work? Okay, you have to understand how to underwrite any particular property that you're looking at to see if it actually pencils out for you. Okay, so you have to understand what the money invested is, right? Like what is required of you. That's going to be your purchase price of the property. You're going to have closing costs associated with that. There's typically going to be a small or maybe minor rehab budget that's necessary. And then you're going to have your down payment, right? So either your 15 or 20% down of whatever your purchase price is, all right? Then you have to think about what your money out is. Okay, that's taxes, insurance, property management, CapEx. You have to account for vacancy and mortgage. And then again, whatever is left after your money out scenario takes place, the cash flow is what's remaining. Your net cash flow is what's remaining. This is going to be the number that helps determine on whether or not this deal is a good deal. I have so many people say, DeMarie, can you take a look at my property? Is this a good deal? Is this a good deal? The first question that I always ask anybody that ever comes to me saying, hey, is this a good deal, is what is your why? Are you buying this for cash flow? Are you buying this because you want the property to appreciate? Is this a tax play for you? Because how am I supposed to answer on whether or not this is a good deal for you or not if you don't even know why you're buying the deal? Because then we have nothing to evaluate or compare to whether or not the deal is good, okay? So it's so important that you understand your why, because then every other part of this process becomes so much easier because you're able to quickly reference your why and be like, hey, this is in alignment with why I'm buying the property, so this must be a good deal. Or, hey, this is not in alignment, so this is not a good deal. Again, ideally, you want that cash flow number to be positive. So if it is a positive number, let's just call it $500 a month, does that $500 satisfy what your goal is? Okay, or do you need $600? Or maybe you need $200 a month positive. Whatever that number is, now that you understand what you're referencing it against, you know whether or not that satisfies your needs or not. Okay, or if it's negative, right? We need to walk away from that deal. There are too many good deals every single day on and off market, okay, that are available to us as investors. We do not need to waste our time with a bad deal or a negative deal. There's too many other good opportunities out there, okay, that can satisfy our needs, okay? And a lot of people are trying to force a square into a round hole, and it just doesn't work that way, you guys. Okay, last thing that you guys will be able to understand in this video is understand a red flag when one presents itself, right? If you guys see red flags, why do you guys want to have issues or potential problems, right? We want to have peace of mind when we're investing in properties, okay? I believe in the philosophy of whatever helps me sleep at night. So I'm going to do things that help me sleep well and peacefully at night. If I'm buying in a crime-ridden area and I know my property is vacant, I'm probably going to be worried about that property being occupied, right? So that's not going to give me peace. But if I'm buying in a very good area and I know it's safe, I know I'm going to have more of a peace of mind because my property's not going to be messed with or vandalized or broken into, whatever the case may be. All right, so things that you need to be aware of when you're reviewing properties that are red flags. First thing's going to be a ton of abandoned homes near or around your property. That doesn't show you positive neighborhood growth, that shows you negative growth, okay? You don't want to see a bunch of cheap properties sitting around for long periods of time. If you're looking at all the properties that are listed in that area and they've been listed for 100 days, 200 days, 180 days, and they're old and they're 50, 60, $70,000 depending on the markets that you're buying in, this is not a good sign, right? Because these are extremely affordable entry prices on homes. So if they were good deals in a strong market, trust me, investors would be buying those deals. So the fact that no other investors are taking those off the market either is a sign that you're probably missing something, all right? The other thing is going to be damage that you don't understand and that you also can't handle, right? You want to deal with a property that needs a brand new roof year one, or you need to rework the foundation or redo the plumbing or rewire the electrical. Okay, don't bite off more than you can chew, especially when you're dealing with the first property that you're looking to purchase, even if it's your fifth property. Sometimes some people are not taking into account that there are other costs associated than down payment and closing costs when it comes to buying and acquiring these homes. All right. And the last thing is the property's rent is currently way above FMR. Some people look at that as a good thing, and I would say it's more neutral than just automatic red flag, but I wanted to put it on there as well. If you're buying an occupied property and it's getting more than the FMR rent, right, but the crime in the area is bad and the area in the neighborhood itself is pretty rough, just know that your whole business model on that purchase is contingent on that tenant wanting to continue to renew that lease, right? Because if that tenant doesn't want to renew the lease and you decide to buy the property anyway, and you only get to collect that rent that's above FMR for 3, for 4, for 5 months, trust me, the amount of money that you can lose on the back end after those first 4 to 5 months is far greater than any money you would have captured as revenue. Okay, so you need to be super mindful if you're buying an occupied property in a worse neighborhood with worse crime, things along those lines. You need to be mindful of those things because if that tenant, again, doesn't renew, you now have to hope that the property is in good enough condition that you don't have to invest even more money into it. And then you have to wait while you're marketing the property to get a new tenant. All right. All right, guys. So again, reading a deal fast isn't about just doing the math, right? You have to have a process in place, right? So that's why I created just a simple 4-step checklist that makes it easy for you guys to know what types of things you need to be accounting for when you're reviewing any deal. I'm creating a part 2 for this video, actually diving into me looking at a live deal with live numbers, right? I hope this video is extremely valuable for you guys. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I'm trying to drop a new video every single week. See you guys in part 2 of this video. Peace.